I've already heard some whisperings as to what exactly happened, though, that I have to say I find incredibly funny. So apparently, you know, we talked about this before, but Tucker Carlson, obviously Tucker Carlson is a huge Russia simp because fascists, generally speaking, like other fascists, you know? Weirdly, in spite of it being a fundamentally like nationalist ideology, it really seems to have like an internationalist bent, largely because the shared goal of all fascists globally is to destroy non-fascists locally, right? Like, if the borders of the Japanese co-East Asian prosperity sphere ever ran up against the borders of the Nazi Empire, they would have immediately fought, like 100%. But in the short term, they had a shared goal of destroying, you know, their respective non-fascist governments, and for that reason, they were able to get along. Kind of the same deal between America and Russia, you know? Though obviously we're not really talking about imperial conquests here, because that's not really how the world works anymore. Yeah, the East Asian co-prosperity sphere, yeah. Man in the High Castle plot, I really have to read that, or watch that, yeah. I really have to do that. Anyway, the impression that I got from what I've seen people talk about is that the interview between Putin and Tucker Carlson mostly devolved into like an esoteric history lesson. Like, Tucker Carlson wanted to talk about how wokeness in like Bud Light is leading to the fall of the Western Empire or something. And Putin is like, you know, sit down. I will tell you of our great king, you know, or some bullshit like that. For about 30-ish minutes, yeah. Putin's most insane moments in Tucker Carlson interview. He's translated, of course.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
Incredible. I like the part where Putin made fun of Tucker for not making the CIA. Oh, I saw that! Hold on. Tucker Carlson dumbfounded as Putin mocks his CIA dreams.
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although, it is a serious organization. I understand.
It's so, because like there's so much like ideology at play here, right? Because Tucker Carlson is an empty suit who doesn't believe anything and will do anything that he's told to do. All of Tucker Carlson's opinions are an extension of like who is funding him, who's giving him money to say what he's saying. He's completely insincere. Putin might lie all the time, but he absolutely has opinions, right? Like, Vladimir Putin isn't an empty figurehead for anyone. He's the strongman. He's like the global image of the strongman. He absolutely has opinions. And if you take like someone who like Tucker Carlson, whose fascism is completely inauthentic, right? His fascism isn't built of some kind of like diehard blood and soil desire to like reconquer Europa or whatever. Like, Tucker Carlson just says what he says, right? He's totally empty. But Vladimir Putin, you know for a fact that like any true-blooded fascist, Vladimir Putin's internal world is going to be this like incoherent mishmash of like folk iconography, wonk history, ahistoricism. Like, Vladimir Putin's version of fascism has to go back, like, much in the same way that if you talk to a real Nazi, someone who really believes it and isn't just like making shit up, like, you know, like somebody who isn't just like faking it for money or whatever, like, real Nazis, if you go back to the 30s, had insane beliefs about like the ancestral Aryan people in Europe, right? They thought that like Aryans used to be like 12 feet tall and that like all of history is fake and they were like the one true people or something. A whole mishmash of like soup brain bullshit. Himmler was crazy. Yeah. That like historical mysticism was a big part of original Nazism, which again, this is like a true believer thing. Tucker Carlson doesn't give a shit about any of this, but Putin does, which means that like if they're talking to each other, you know, Tucker Carlson wants to talk about how like, you know, woke trans people are grooming children in schools, and Putin's like, yes, that's nice, you know, Ivan the Terrible back in his day, you see. Oh my God, that's funny. Tucker asked Putin if he believes in God. I think I can get away with these like tiny clips, you know?
Natural at work as you look out across what's happening in the world now. Do you see God at work? Do you ever think to yourself, these are forces that are not human?
I have to show you the visual. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know this is scuffed, guys. I'm limited in my medium as a live streamer. Look at the way Putin's looking while he's being asked this.
That are not human?
Да нет, я, честно говоря, так не думаю. Я думаю о том, что...
No, to be honest.
Oh my God. You know that meme of like the one lady creeping up on the girl with like her fingers on her shoulders, and the meme format is always like when a fake X meets a real X or something like that. When a fake like empty-headed American suit you know, confronts a real esoteric ahistorical fascist. Vaush, this was supposed to shake the world. Apparently a lot of it was just like a weird just history lesson basically on like the origin of the Russian Volk. As for like stuff they actually agreed upon, I've only seen a few clips. I have to say this whole thing couldn't have worked out that well in Tucker Carlson's favor, because I didn't see any clips that looked like they were big zingers for like anti-wokeness. You know what I mean? That's the main thing you would expect Putin to like you know for a fact that the main reason this was being done was a way to discourage Westerners from supporting Ukraine, and which is a shared interest of theirs, and B, it's an effort to create a kind of like shared bond of nationalism that is to the mutual benefit of the right wing in both countries. You know what I mean? Like, that was clearly the goal. And one of the best ways to do that, I imagine, would be for Tucker Carlson to bring up relatively, like, Western-ish culture war points, like trans people or whatever, or DEI or whatever, and, like, engage with them with Putin. The funny thing to me is that the Kremlin, Russian media broadly, actually is really, really, really good at weaponizing American culture war talking points to disrupt both like American politics and like globally, you know what I mean? Like, remember that ad that we saw a little while ago that was advertising for like Americans to come to Russia, to live in Russia? And one of the and the way they proposed that was like there was this couple on a flight who had to like bow down and apologize to a black man, and the joke of the advertisement was like, if you live in America, you're a slave to the black man. Come to Russia where you'll be free. They're very, very good at like taking American culture war talking points and using them to their own benefit, right? Guys, we watched that on stream. It's real. I'm not kidding. I remember one that was saying they were advertising they had young women and shit. Yeah, when Russia has like terrible birth rates, very high abortion rates, and everyone's miserable. Yeah, we're all familiar. But Vladimir Putin is not the Kremlin, right? Vladimir Putin is too like old guard, I think, to be able to adopt that you know, to adapt and move around that quickly. See these clips. Putin said the Poles forced Hitler to attack them in 1939. Classic. This one doesn't have a English translation. From Putin, translated, the Poles forced, they played too long and forced Hitler to start World War II with them. Why did the war begin with Poland on September 1939? Poland was uncooperative. Hitler had nothing else to do in the realization of his plans but to start with Poland. Well, there you go, I guess. We're all learning some history with Vladimir Putin. Nice. I have a feeling this whole thing is going to backfire massively for Tucker Carlson. He might get a lot of prestige himself for having done the interview, which again, the Kremlin said many people have offered to interview. They just only accepted Tucker Carlson because they thought that he would be like compliant enough to not disagree too much with Vladimir Putin. But like, it seems like a lot of this interview just serves to make Tucker look weak and Putin look crazy, which doesn't really do anything to, I don't know, challenge the left-wing narrative here in the States. Does that make sense? I'm doing my best to like synthesize an analysis here based on the fact that like I'm terrified of playing clips because YouTube strikes are a big deal.
You're making the case that Ukraine, certainly parts of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, is in effect Russia has been for hundreds of years. Why wouldn't you just take it when you became president 24 years ago?
Why not, Putin?
Weapons, they don't. If it's actually your land, why did you wait so long?
I'll tell you. I'm coming to that. This briefing is coming to an end. It might be boring, but it explains many things.
I just don't know how it's relevant.
Good. Good. I'm so gratified that you appreciate that. Thank you. So, before World War II...
Okay, I'm sorry. That was from the history lecture, no doubt. What is this link that I have? Turn down the background fan. I have no idea who recorded that. Oh yeah, this is the Russian propaganda mocking those leaving Russia for America. How long have I wanted to do this? You are fly to America? Yes, we are moving here. America is the freest country in the world. Land of opportunity. Are you with your husband? Yes, we are together here. He will come soon. And here is my husband. Get acquainted. That's it. That was the whole commercial. That was the whole commercial. That was it. That was the whole thing. If you move to America, you'll find, I don't know, lesbians or something? I don't know. Sorry, mister. Passengers behind you. Vegetarians. They have discomfort because you eat meat. But we don't force them to eat it. Sorry, but in the US it is customary to adhere to the principles of democracy. Let me take it from you. This is how democracy... This is Russia... This is the Kremlin unironically trying to, like, polarize their constituency against democracy by arguing it will allow vegetarians to take your meat from you. If only. Hey, this is a different one. We're in a new one now. Hey, there's a line to the toilet.
What do you want?
What do you want?
I want to go to the toilet.
Простите, мистер, что случилось?
Да вот парень без очереди лезет тут.
И что? Вы не хотите его пропустить?
Я? Конечно, конечно. Его надо пропустить. Мы подождем. Его народ.
People endured the oppression of white people for many years. We all owe African Americans a debt.
Простите нас, сэр.
Прошу вас.
Literally, Russian state propaganda. Hey, Russians, if you leave our shit country to go to America, you will be bowing to the black man. By the way, this is also racial cuckoldry fetishization. I notice also that everyone speaks in Russian except for the black man. Like, they had to make the black man even more foreign by having him speak in English in a thick accent or whatever. Not that it matters. They don't speak English, right? So, like, literally, like, this is fully just like racial cuckoldry. I pretend to be mad at it when in reality I'm getting off to it. Insane. He speaks English in a strong Nigerian accent. Yeah, but he's the one person they didn't make speak Russian, you know? This reads like a Sunny in Philadelphia, but yes, it does. It does read like it's in It's Always Sunny bit, you know? Like, hey, gang, we've been accused of being racist, you know? We gotta make a commercial to, you know, show people, you know, patties, it's for everyone. And then they do something like this, you know, like in a line to the bathroom. Rick Shanta. That was the best I could do for DeVito, okay? Shut the fuck up, okay? You want to come on stream and try a DeVito for the first time in your life? off. Okay? I think that was identifiable. That didn't sound like Rick. That didn't sound like Rick. Rick is more high-pitched than that. Come off. F you. Oh my god. Flawless DeVito, thank you. And as you can see, I'm pulling off a flawless, like, physical impression of him as well. Yeah, anyway, so that's the what was I showing that for? Oh, right. The fact that Russian propaganda can adapt to right-wing talking points in America, but Vladimir Putin himself cannot. That was it. That was why. For more than 2 hours, a largely unchallenged Putin showered Carlson with Russian history and Kremlin talking points. Putin repeated his claim that the full-scale invasion in February 2022, which Kiev and its allies described as an unprovoked act of aggression, was to protect Russian interests and prevent Ukraine from posing a threat to Russia by joining NATO. And then, and I really appreciate this, by the way, apparently he also said that Poland forced Germany to invade them back in 1939, which really makes Vladimir Putin sound to an average Westerner like he shouldn't be trusted with regards to his assessment as to who provoked aggression. You know what I mean? Like, usually the right wing here in America puts some effort into trying to not sound just like Nazis. Putin clearly, having not gotten that bit, it just does it. Incredible. Appearing confident and at ease, of course, it's Putin. He made occasional friendly jabs at Carlson, who appeared baffled by the history lecture and tried to interject questions, but the 71-year-old Russian leader stayed on topic for over 20 minutes. Carlson didn't ask Putin about war crimes Russian troops have been accused of in Ukraine or about his relentless crackdown on dissent. Putin said it's up to Washington to stop supplying weapons to Ukraine, which he called a U.S. satellite, and persuade Kyiv to negotiate, saying a deal was the way to end the war. He said that about Poland, but then defended Molotov-Ribbentrop. Well, like I've argued, ideologically, people who defend Stalin and people who defend Hitler often have more in common than they have apart. Putin said the West won't succeed in inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia and Ukraine, and rejected allegations that Moscow harbors plans to attack Poland or other NATO countries. He said Russia is ready to negotiate a prisoner exchange for Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gershkovich, who was jailed in March 2023 on espionage charges that he denies. He suggested Moscow wants the release of a Russian imprisoned in Germany. I heard about this. He brought it up. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby tried to minimize the impact of Carlson's interview ahead of its release, saying, "Remember, you're listening to Vladimir Putin, and you shouldn't take anything at face value that he has to say." Russian media on Friday gave the interview blanket coverage, with major broadcasters showing excerpts and one state news agency describing it as, quote, "a dagger blow through the curtain of propaganda of the dishonest media of the civilized world." Me when I'm trying to really extend the word count in the essay that's due tomorrow. Before leaving Fox, Carlson repeatedly questioned the validity of U.S. support for Ukraine in Russia's invasion, asking why Americans are told to hate Putin so much. His commentaries were frequently circulated on Russian state-run media. Asked by Carlson if Russia would release Gershkovich, Putin said Moscow is open to talks, but repeated he was charged with espionage, an accusation that Gershkovich denies. He was caught red-handed when he was secretly getting classified info, Putin said, adding he doesn't exclude the reporter could return home. Well, I guess it would be nice if he released this guy. That would be pretty cool, I feel. He pointed to a man imprisoned in a U.S. allied country for liquidating a bandit who had killed Russian soldiers during fighting in the Caucasus. Putin didn't mention names, but appeared to refer to Vadim Krasikov, a Russian serving a life sentence in Germany after being convicted of the 2019 killing of Zelimkhan Tornika Kangoshvili, a 40-year-old Georgian citizen of Chechen ethnicity. German judges said Krasikov acted on the orders of Russian authorities, who gave him a false identity and passport and resource to carry out the killing. Okay, so Putin is saying that he'll release the Wall Street Journal guy if we release somebody who is imprisoned for a life sentence because he was told to assassinate a Georgian citizen. Gotcha. Maupin's feed is filled with pro-Tucker stuff now. It's amazing. Oh, this isn't new. Obviously, Caleb Maupin has been like, Russian mouthpiece. He literally got marked as like a Russian state media on Twitter. So it's not at all surprising. the Vladimir Putin interview on Twitter right now, the full thing that, again, I can't show, and I'm sorry, you can watch it yourself. You can also watch, by the way, news coverage of it. If you want, running commentary, you're allowed to do that. I can't stop you. It's not illegal. Because news agencies often have broader blanket permissions for covering stuff like this than would be afforded to regular YouTubers. Obviously, if news agencies on YouTube like CNN were susceptible to like DMCA strikes the way normal people were, then they would probably never have any channel operating ever, because everyone would just DMCA strike them for all the stuff they cover. It's kind of a two-tiered system, a little bit unfair. Right now, the post on Twitter for the full interview with Tucker Carlson, that has about 850,000 likes. A lot of those are Russian bots, but a lot of them are real. It's a big deal. Even without all the associated propaganda, it remains a big deal. There's no getting around that. As for what the actual consequences of this will be, I don't really think... It seems like Putin wasn't successful in getting much done or said in terms of, like, energizing the right over here in America. It seems like a lot of the stuff that he did, the platform gave Kremlin propagandists a lot of like room to breathe, but it doesn't seem like Putin did a very good job of giving the other end. Actually, kind of a boss move from Vladimir Putin for him to exploit Tucker Carlson's presence in a way that he could use to like benefit his own personal and national interests. But on the other side of things, it seems like Putin didn't give very much like easy right-wing American talking points. So that's nice. Putin's never been especially cooperative. That is the Putin classic. Yeah, for sure. Matt Walsh jerking off Putin. I love to do this. Just started watching the Putin interview. One thing you notice right away is the guy is lucid and very sharp, capable of sitting for a 2-hour interview about extremely dense subjects. Compare that to the frail, senile vegetable in the White House who has to cancel a puff piece interview before the Super Bowl because he can't speak on camera for more than 60 seconds without falling apart. I'm really sorry, guys. Unfortunately, I agree with what Matt Walsh is saying here. Yeah, sorry. So you're not getting me off this. Like, Putin obviously comes across as more composed than Biden does. Like, it's completely inarguable, Putin is a selfish lover. Yeah. But that being said, you might notice that if the first thing Matt Walsh has to say is just like a jab at Biden being old, that's not exactly much praise for the substance or the content of the interview with Putin. You know what I mean? Like, you could have just as well said this about literally any old world leader. This isn't like a specific to the Tucker Putin interview thing. It's not like a quote or a reference to any content of the interview. So I'm sure there are some things that people are going to bite onto, but altogether, I find it enormously funny that Putin just used this as a soapbox to monologue about Russian history and so on for a while. Very, very funny. Putin blatantly claims that Nazi ideology is alive and well in Russia. Okay.
What do you do about it? I mean, Hitler's been dead for 80 years. Nazi Germany no longer exists. And
is that true? Some people would deny this.
So, true. And so
true.
I think what you're saying is you want to extinguish or at least control Ukrainian nationalism, but how? How do you do that?
Okay, right off the bat, oh my God, this is also telling. Tucker Carlson is trying to... Okay, Tucker Carlson is a friend to Nazis and has many Nazi audience members. The first thing Nazis like to do is deny that Nazis exist, right? This is back when like Lauren Southern and Dave Rubin did that interview where they were like, there are no white nationalists anymore. What are you talking about? When Lauren Southern was like objectively, straightforwardly a white nationalist, They love to deny it. So even though the broad narrative from Russia about Ukraine has been one of denazification, Tucker Carlson doesn't want to acknowledge that Nazis are still a thing. Because if Tucker Carlson acknowledges that Nazis are a thing in Ukraine, it implies that Nazis and, what's more, denazification are both things and desirable things, respectively, over here in the States. If he accepts the Russian narrative that what they're doing in Ukraine is justified because they're trying to denazify it, he is implicitly suggesting to his filled with Nazis audience that denazification is actually a good and cool thing to do as a pretext for invasion, and he doesn't want that. So he opens by saying, Nazis, what are Nazis? Nazis are gone, Hitler's dead. We're just talking about Ukrainian nationalism. So do you understand what he's doing here? It's so revealing. It's so indicative. You know what I mean? The propaganda is inconsistent. It can't, like, you can't have both. You can't simultaneously maintain the illusion that Nazism's not a real thing. Ignore the fact that my fans are full of Nazis. Don't worry about. Like, you can't do that and also go along with the general Russian line on denazification.
Казалось бы, тонкий, он очень противный, этот вопрос.
This question appears to be subtle. It is quite pesky.
Значит,
You say Hitler has been dead for so many years.
люди,
no.
которые,
80 years.
у них
In fact, he is still here, alive, through a combination of Russian science and wizardry.
Oh, it's a meme. Okay, gotcha. It's a meme. That's unfortunate. Who linked this? I should ban you. So unfortunately, I actually really want to know what he said in a way that isn't a meme. You know, it doesn't change anything that I said about the framing presented by Tucker Carlson. Concluding again? Well, no, nothing that I concluded was incorrect. It refers to the earlier framing. I would like to know what Tucker Carlson said. He said that Nazism is alive and well in the Ukraine and the US. Did he say that? Because if he said that, that is, again, another thing that Tucker Carlson can't... Because, again, from the, like, Dugin-esque Russian perspective, like, it is still useful to them in a propagandistic way to talk about other nations as though they're full of Nazis and we are denazifying them because we are like the legacy of the Soviets. We are the legacy of the Russian Empire. Like, you know, the Nazis invaded us. We must pay unto them what they did to us in kind. That kind of shit, right? When, of course, Russia is itself full of, like, Hitler particles, you know? He said Nazism is alive in all countries, but these countries combat it, unlike Ukraine. Then, again, that is really bad for Tucker Carlson's narrative. That's very, very funny. Here, wait, this is the last clip that I'm going to look at. Couldn't Tucker pull off the lefties are the real Nazis line to agree with Putin? I don't think... Guys, I could be completely wrong on this, by the way. I don't think that's the line in Russia. I don't think that's like a bit that they do. I think that like, Putin is meant to be the kind of like nationalist strongman who carries forward the legacy of people like Lenin or Stalin, but in, like, you know, kind of an abstract way. Like, he's very anti-communist, but at the same time, he was in power through the Soviet Union. There's almost like an apolitical bent towards nationalism there. Vladimir Putin is fascist and the nation of Russia is fascist, but I don't think they've adopted that line. The idea that, like, oh, well, actually National Socialist means that they were socialists, i.e. Nazis. It's just another way of indicating, I guess, that as many similarities as they might occasionally share, different nations' versions of fascism are going to carry very different, like, lines. Big tent fascism tends not to hold up that well.
Characterization of what you said?
Я понимаю, что поскольку мои длинные диалоги, они...
I understand that my long speeches probably fall outside of the genre of the interview. That is why I asked you at the beginning, are we going to have a serious talk or a show? You said a serious talk. So bear with me, please. We're coming to the point where the Soviet Ukraine was established.
Dude, he's so funny. I'm a Putin stan now. I'm sorry, guys. The most, like, emasculating laugh over here from Tucker Carlson too, which, I mean, he always does that, right? But still, the fucking Tucker Carlson, after sitting there for 90 minutes of esoteric, like, historical rambling, being like, can we talk about wokeness? Can we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion? Can we talk about transgender healthcare? And Putin is like, I'm sorry, were we here for a fucking conversation, or do you want to dance like a clown? Like, are you my jester or are you my interviewer? Now, as I was saying, 800 years ago, Russia invented corn. And just like we, the aeroplane, first constructed by... Oh, man. He's so autistic, he's just like me, for real. Yeah, true. Autism really is like a, bright shining light castle, dark castle kind of divergence between leftism and fascism, isn't it? Tucker looked nervous a few times during the interview because he's not getting what he wants. He's not getting the talking points that he wants. He's not getting the narrative that he wants, All right. Okay. God, that's funny. I wish I could watch the whole thing with you guys, but I'm not risking my entire channel for that. Sorry. If he appears this intelligent, does it mean he isn't irrational, or are those things not mutually exclusive? Oh, no, you can be intelligent and irrational. Vladimir Putin is objectively intelligent. Like, anybody who tells you otherwise, that he's some kind of like stupid dawdling Trump figure, is delusional. Putin has spent decades and decades carefully consolidating power, killing his enemies, projecting Russian propaganda into the world at large to try to like destabilize Western democracies. He's obviously smart, but you can be smart and also be kind of like an egotistical, megalomaniacal madman. Like, those things aren't mutually exclusive, right? It's also possible to be smart, and then as time goes on, you get more and more in your head. Yes men corrupt your judgment further and further, and your decision-making abilities break apart, even if you're still a smart guy. Is he or is he not going senile? I don't know. I think that he's had some issues with his health lately, but to be fair, people have been saying that for decades. So I don't know if that's actually, I don't know if that's valid necessarily, but he's clearly smart. Literally, TUCKER getting cucked by Russian state media to allow Putin to basically ramble and show that he truly doesn't give a about defending his actions to Americans. Yeah. Also, if he really was running the line on like, Ukraine is a proxy American state, America needs to stop supplying them weapons so we can reach like a deal or an accord, I think that it's pretty clear that at this point, like, okay, any negotiating to end the war with Putin would be done in bad faith from Putin's side, right? Obviously, of course, they've always lied. But it is pretty funny to see that even in a propaganda interview, the aims of the Russian state in Ukraine have been reduced to, in all likelihood, what if we just keep the territory we have now? You know what I mean? Like, it's remarkable how, as time has gone on, the bad faith offers from Russia have waned in, I guess, egregiousness from like, we'll take everything east of the Dnieper River, all the way down to presumably now, like, what if we just stopped? What if we just hugged and kissed? Yeah, they've downgraded their goals. Russia said he's mad at the U.S. because they denied Russia entry into NATO way back when. It is true that if Russia had been given a clear and assisted path to NATO, the world would be a much better place. Again, this is due to the, and I agree with this, the arrogance of Western elites. After the Cold War, we acted like, victors of a battle. We wanted to dance on the graves of our enemies. So their country economically, we imposed on them like a wide variety of economic policies that ended up destroying a lot of these countries with the shock doctrine, and we treated them essentially like second-class European citizens. The closer you were to Western Europe, the more, I guess, like, fair-handed people were in like assessing your viability as a real ally to the West. But all the way out to Russia, it was like, nah, and there was a lot of arrogance, and this is incorrect. No, what this is simplified. I acknowledge there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of like complexity. We're talking about multiple countries dealing with multiple countries over a decades-long period, but that definitely was like a trend. And I think a lot more could have been done from the West to like fairly and graciously incorporate the former Soviet states into the New World Order in a way that wasn't clearly one-sided and exploitative. If we had allowed Russia into NATO, Putin would be at worst acting like Erdogan. Yeah, and Erdogan has definitely been less destabilizing for the world than Putin has, though I don't like Erdogan either, Putin gave an interview to a beautiful American journalist in 2021. He became flustered. He's just like me. No, he's not, actually. I've never once in my life been flustered while talking to someone beautiful. It's never happened. The situation inside Russia has deteriorated since the beginning of the war. That is true, but it's also important to understand that, like, Russia has been able to effectively transition itself into a near indefinite wartime economy. By near indefinite, I don't mean they can do it forever. I mean they're able to prolong themselves for multiple years in a way we didn't expect beforehand. And a lot of that is just a product of the fact that they've got a lot of, I don't know, oil. A lot of it is like very raw resource extraction. A lot of it is the fact that, to be honest, their infrastructure was already dog shit, so they had low standards to begin with. It's the oil. A big part of it is the oil.